Welcome to the Awakened Goddess Show, your source for inspiration, wisdom, and personal discovery. The place to learn from a diverse mix of mentors, metaphysical experts, spiritual leaders, and best-selling authors from around the world. I'm your host, Angela Wilkinson. Join me as I explore the minds of my masterful guests while they share powerful insights and easy-to-use tools you can start using right away. Now, let's tap into the energy of the Awakened Goddess and be enlightened by today's guest. Melissa Joy Jonsson, affectionately known as M-Joy, is an author, speaker, inspirational leader, and founder and instructor of M-Joy Seminars. She's best known for her ability to engage people from all over the world to embrace their true authentic power and intuition by playing in the field of the heart. Melissa has taught popular life transformational matrix energetic seminars around the globe since 2008. In 2014, she launched the M-Joy Seminar Teachings, a unifying We movement in consciousness dedicated to heart-centered awareness and practical personal empowerment for everyone. Melissa's teachings are a culmination of her expansive work integrating cutting-edge scientific principles and spiritual concepts into practical daily experiences. She provides a new language to experience self-love as integrity. Now let's welcome Melissa Joy to the show. Hi, I'm Angela Wilkinson, and welcome to this episode of the Awakened Goddess Show, where we co-create powerful, conscious conversations on the leading edge. Today I have a returning guest, Melissa Joy. She's coming back to talk more about morphic fields. Then we're going to talk about morphic fields and how to unplug, how to use them to our advantage, and then we're going to see where else we take this conversation. Right, Melissa?
Sounds good to me. Thanks for having me back. I'm delighted to be here.
Yes. Okay. So to start us off, what the heck is a morphic field? Because honestly, morphic field is something I only heard about, I'd say, 6 months ago. And I've only heard it from one other person. And I was like, oh, that's an interesting concept. So what is it?
Well, it's actually more common than people realize. And as more people become aware of morphic fields and their influence in our experience of reality, the morphic field of morphic fields is actually taking on a greater prevalence. So it's very understandable that you haven't heard of it. The term morphic field, to give credit to the pioneering biologist that coined the term, stems from Rupert Sheldrake. Rupert Sheldrake is a biologist in the United Kingdom. He coined the term off of a proven principle in biology known as morphogenic fields. And basically, I can talk high-level science, I can talk biological. I want to bring it down to a very simplified description. So I'll kind of melanize the science of morphic fields for our viewers so that we can approach them practically. But what a morphic field is it basically gives structural and functional marching orders to all living organisms, all the way down to the cells and literally all the way down to the DNA. So they're basically interlocking grids or informational templates that inform the liver to be a liver, that tell the cell to be a cell, that tell a bird to fly north or fly south in the winter. A nice metaphor to describe a morphic field to me is that they function like cloud servers. Everybody's had the experience of getting on their computer and logging on to the internet. Well, you can log on to the internet and you can log into a particular cloud server. And when you're on that cloud server, you're going to access the information that's inherent to that particular cloud. Well, morphic fields function very much in the same way, depending upon which cloud server you're dialed up to on the universal internet, you're going to access that information. Now, where Sheldrake has gone further than even the proven principles in biology is that he has said that it's more than a biological concept, that all of consciousness, all of reality gets its it's information from these interlocking informational templates known as morphic fields. So there's social morphic fields, there's economic morphic fields, there's religious morphic fields, there's familial morphic fields. We all know the morphic field of our family. Like, this is just the way it's favorite is, right? In a lot of instances, what has been deemed genetic may in fact be a function of morphic resonance. Now, where the Amjoy teachings dovetail nicely off of Sheldrake's work is that I teach students how to become more aware of the morphic fields that are playing out in their experience of reality. What morphic fields are you connected to that are creating and perpetuating certain experiences, like, for example, a morphic field of poverty consciousness, so to speak, because one of the principles inherent to morphic resonance is that morphic fields are habitual, which means that they literally create habits that form the habitat for our experience. And so you may not even be aware of the morphic fields you're resonating in because you think that's simply the way things are. And there's tremendous benefit in bringing forth recognition of the morphic fields that are playing out in your reality, and then learning how to gracefully disconnect or unplug, and or more empoweringly to choose different morphic fields so that different experiences can unfold.
And that's what is really exciting to me, this idea that we can unplug from one and maybe plug into something that we want to step into or we want to resonate with. So just for clarification, how do morphic fields differ from placeholders? Because last time when you were on the show, you and I talked a lot about placeholders. And guys, if you have not watched or listened to that episode, it's episode 165, and we dive deep into placeholders. So what is the difference?
Well, everything is, in a sense, a placeholder, everything that you're connected to in your reality. And so morphic fields can be placeholders. In fact, and I think I even mentioned this in our first call, that a morphic field can be a placeholder, and then we just didn't really unplug or unpack morphic fields.
Sure.
But it can be a placeholder in that it's there to reflect back some aspect of yourself, either loving yourself or not loving yourself, that you've not yet recognized. And so the morphic field itself can serve as a placeholder, as a mirror to help you get clear on what you really want, or what you're experiencing that is not so much what you want. So a morphic field can be a placeholder. When we talk about the terminology of plugging in or unplugging, it's not as simple as like plugging your phone in. Like, it's
right.
It's, you know,
if only.
well, I guess it can be, but this is sort of a metaphorical description to talk about connection to information, connection to these non-local interlocking grids of information that can create electrical currents in the electromagnetic spectrum. But it's not literally like you're plugging into the wall and then you're going to feel all this electrical currents, because morphic fields, they're not really electromagnetic in nature. They are where nature hosts its information.
Okay.
So information as potential. But from a practical standpoint, if you want to get clear on what are the morphic fields that you are plugged into, or that you're resonating with, because those are the grids that are creating your experiences, take a look at your placeholders. Take a look at the situations and the patterns that are playing out in your life, because typically those patterns are plugged into those larger, more prevailing morphic fields. And that's why sometimes it can be so difficult to change, because you're doing everything right. You're trying to change your vibration, and yet your grid has a completely different resonance. And so understanding morphic resonance can really be a game changer, because then you're truly empowered not to squeeze into this narrow vibration, but to access a huge field that has a lot of freedom and flexibility in play.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So let's get really practical here. So a morphic field that a lot of people are maybe plugged into, would that be struggle or working hard?
Oh, absolutely. Here's, here's the thing about morphic fields is the way they look to me kind of, have you ever played that game Barrel of Monkeys when you were a
Yeah.
little? Okay, and you've got this barrel and then there's all these monkey tails. Well, morphic fields hook together almost like those monkey tails. And so you may be plugged into a morphic field of you have to work hard in order for money to follow. And then that's hooked into a morphic field called struggle. And then struggles hooked into a morphic field called suffering. And then suffering's hooked into the morphic field of religion. And then religion's hooked into the morphic field of politics. And all of a sudden you have this huge grid right in front of you, and you no longer have to ask, why is it so hard to change? Because that group is almost creating a prison that's imprisoning you through the information that you're resonating with. So yes, that's a very common morphic field that many people have been conditioned to believe is normal functioning.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So if someone wants to explore these morphic fields that they're connected or resonating with, you say look at how your external world is reflecting to you. So if you're finding that you're struggling and it's really hard to make money, going on with that example, so then you know that there is a morphic field that you're attached to there.
Well, first of all, I would say you never definitively know. You can probably assume that there's a morphic field or a series of morphic fields, but don't always assume that it's about money. And I think we talked about this a little bit in our first call, although maybe not. So typically when you're having difficulty creating abundance, yes, one facet might be that you're resonating in a morphic field of lack. Although an abundance of lack is still, technically, it's still abundance. It's just the wrong type of abundance. But there may be some other morphic fields at play there that are perhaps more personal to you. Perhaps you were raised in a morphic field where money was used to manipulate people, or there never was enough money, and so the sense of struggle was kind of the habitat or the habits that people resonated with. And so it may not necessarily be about money. Money may be the placeholder. The morphic fields may be lack, struggle, poverty consciousness, not good enough. I mean, these are all, they're going to vary depending upon your unique configuration of unique patterns.
So when I was reading your book, I saw something that kind of jumped out at me, and it relates to this conversation. And you talked about morphic money memes. Is that what we're talking about here?
In a sense, yes. It's another way to describe it. Getting really clear on what money means to you can make the difference between resonating in a morphic field of lack or resonating in a morphic field of abundance where money naturally expresses as a currency of infinite potential. And so, yeah, a lot of us run a lot of memes or programs consciously and unconsciously around money. And it's usually never about money. I mean, money itself is a placeholder. It's just that, you know, in America it's green, and in another country it's a different color, right? But what does money mean to you?
Right.
What does money bring to you? One of my favorite stories around money is from a client who had contacted me because her practice had completely gone dry. She went from having 15 clients a week to absolutely none, and she wanted to know what the frick was going on. And
Melissa, I have to say you're reading my mind, because I was going to have you talk about this story. We're so connected.
So, with all due respect, I'll pluck what's in your mind to save you the question. And she didn't know what was going on, and then we took a look at, well, wait a minute, what is it that money means to you? And she really wanted to have freedom. And she wanted to have freedom so that she could travel the world. Well, she created freedom because all of a sudden she had no clients, so she wasn't tethered to her practice, so that she had to be, working 9 to 5. So we just did some subtle tweaks in that we hooked up her desire for a full practice to generate a currency so that she could flow into the freedom that would allow her to travel. And all of a sudden her practice picked up again. She filled in some space where she could take time off, and everything changed. So it's important to look at the setup. Do you want money? Well, if you want money, then you're probably going to have to be working. So it's okay to need to work, but you don't want to work so hard that you can't actually take time off to spend the money to travel. So for her, it was about freedom. And then the question became, how did we set up her life so that she could experience that freedom?
Yes. Yeah, that's what I want to know, because everything that we say and the thoughts we have has a resonance and vibration. And I can, thinking about all the intention setting I've done, I know that there have been times where I accidentally sabotaged myself because of like what she was doing. She was saying she wanted freedom and she wanted freedom to travel, yet she was stopping her money flow.
Yeah, and some of it too was fear. There was some fear around what her life would look like if she really stepped into what she truly authentically wanted. And it's so much easier to create a placeholder called an excuse. I can't travel because I don't have the money. And so that's where being willing to curiously explore all your placeholders, not from a framework of judgment, but from a willingness to get really honest with yourself. That's when they can change, because it really doesn't matter what you're resonating with, which morphic field's playing out. When you bring awareness to the equation, that awareness can change up your resonance. Even bringing awareness, hey, I'm having this fear of traveling. I'm having this fear that I won't have enough money to travel. How do I leverage some other empowering morphic fields so that they can create more of a pervasive resonance in my reality? Because you don't have to get rid of all your fears in order to live fearlessly. You just have to let your desires to be greater than and more pronounced in your reality than the fears that you have that tend to stop us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see that. So then you're kind of talking about plugging. It sounds like you're talking that we can plug into maybe a field to create what we want. So can we plug into the morphic field of millionaires?
Well, yeah.
Or, fill in the blank of whatever it is that you want.
I answer this because I don't want to be, I don't want to put anything out there that I don't necessarily believe is absolutely true.
Right.
And just I believe it's true doesn't mean it is. It just means that I'm in resonance with it. So
sure.
Theoretically, you can plug into any morphic field. You can plug into the morphic field of millionaires and will that mean that instantly everything's going to play out as a reflection of the millionaire mindset? Certainly anything is possible. The question becomes, how likely is it, right? And this is where it becomes important to bring it back to you, to take a look at where are you genuinely resonating, because I guarantee you the people on this call are like, oh, it sounds great to plug into a morphic field of millionaires, but that sounds like fairy tales, and that sounds like a bunch of woo-woo, and if that were true, it would have already happened, okay? The question then becomes, what are all the other prevailing morphic fields that are playing out in your reality which make it difficult to notice the experience of the morphic field of millionaires? And then there's the flip side of it. There's, it's not just being a millionaire doesn't just mean you have a lot of money. There's a lot of responsibility that comes with that. There's a lot of economic morphic fields, governmental morphic fields. It's a complex interplay of a multitude of grids or templates. So it can be a place to start, although that's almost abstract, right? Like, think about it. What does the morphic field of millionaires mean to you? Like, for me, it doesn't actually bring up the best references. I go
and two, think about it. I mean, $1 million is actually not a whole lot of money these days.
It's really not, particularly if you go net income after taxes. It's really nothing. So there, it's almost like you're plugging into the idea of being a millionaire that was encoded back when we were 10 years old,
Yeah.
when maybe it was a lot of money. And your dream is to grow up and be an astronaut or a teacher or a millionaire, and those are your three choices, right? So what, though, would having millions of dollars mean to you? Because if you plug into the access point that's meaningful for you, it's going to have a lot more of an impact, because it's about connection. Plugging in resonance, that's connection. Mm-hmm. You're the one that establishes the connection. See, morphic fields, apart from our connection to them, it's just information of potential. But when we establish the connection and we have a personal access point, that makes all the difference in the world. So what I would say to everyone is, what are the feelings that come up? What are the emotions? What are the experiences that can serve as reference points to amplify that resonance? Does it mean that you could travel the world? Does it mean that you could contribute to orphanages to help children that don't have parents feel loved and secure? Go into the meaning of the particular morphic field so that it can be more likely to play out as an actualized experience. Mm-hmm. The fields that I teach in the MJOY system and shared in Little Book of Big Potentials and Practical Play, the heart-centered way, they're all interconnected, and they all foster abundance and flow and joy and fulfillment, but on your own terms. In other words, some mm-hmm. people may want Field 106 to experience abundance and divine timing, but that's going to mean something differently to every single individual. And, yes. And part of what gets us in trouble is when we let other people define the way that we're supposed to experience our reality, or even the way we're supposed to experience morphic fields.
Yeah. Yeah, it is very subjective, truly. Well, and I'm thinking back to this woman, your client, and you were saying, or she was saying that she wanted to be financially, what was it? Not independent. Right. Yeah, financially, I thought there was a different word. Something that people say often.
Autonomous?
No.
I can't remember what I wrote. I should go back and find it.
Yeah, but anyway, so it was like she was wanting what often I think a lot of us think that we want, the financial freedom.
I think that is the word that it was. I think it was financial freedom.
Was it? Okay. And then we don't realize how the universe can translate that, because she truly was free of finances.
Right. If you don't have any money, then you're free. It was actually a literal translation. Yeah. Even though metaphorically she knew what she wanted. It was quite interesting.
Yeah.
And that's how our placeholders can often show up. They'll often show up as a literal reflection, and we will miss it because it's so obvious.
Girl, I think I've experienced that several times, and now because of this awareness, I have new lenses. We talked about the blurry goggles last time, the blurry glasses. Now it's like I am seeing how what I was saying and what I was intending and putting out to the universe, that I was receiving a literal translation of what I was putting out there.
And isn't that kind of magical? Isn't that like amazing? I get truth bumps every time that happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Boy, and that's where they say, be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, and or just be clear on mm-hmm. what you want. Be clear on what you want. And sometimes we get clear on what we want by virtue of creating what we don't want. I'm really good at that. Yes. Really good at that. And yet, I'm grateful for that ability, so to speak, because it's the same physics. The physics of what we don't want, it's the same physics as what we do want. And so every time I create something that isn't really what I want, it gives me an opportunity to get even more clear, to clean the fog off my goggles. And so it's not failure when you manifest something that isn't quite what you intended. It's an opportunity for clarity, and you just fine tune. And
I think there's celebration in that too, to realize, oh my God, like how powerful am I that I manifest exactly what I wanted.
Oh, it's almost ridiculous. And sometimes it happens instantly. Sometimes it happens over the course of time. Really, what's important is that you begin to notice it. I'm so excited to hear that you're paying attention more to the way that you're sending out your signals and then what's reflecting back, because it is a form of celebration, and it's a form of calibration as well, because if you celebrate it, then you can just, it's kind of like you're listening to a particular song and it's not quite coming in very clearly on your stereo receiver, so you just sort of tweak the knob a little bit, and all of a sudden, boom, you've got perfect resonance and a clear orchestration of a symphony.
Yeah. And then it's time for a dance party.
Time to play again. Absolutely.
Yes. Okay, so can you talk about, you have created 24 fields. How did you create those?
I didn't, honestly.
Oh, okay. So it was like more of like a download, or?
It was a series of downloads. I now understand the first download actually came in when I was 5 years old, which is ridiculous. I didn't have obviously the language or the skill sets to understand what was happening as my life was appearing to fall apart even at 5. But there was a placeholder set when I was 5. Then another download actually happened when I was 16 years old. Again, I was busy being a screwed up teenager and experiencing all the crazy things that you experience when you're a teenager, primarily hormones.
Yes.
And then the entire grid came in its entirety in 2013. And I sat on it for a number of months, and then after reluctantly arguing with my guidance, agreed to start teaching some of it. And so that meant I had to take what was a series of kind of geometric rotes, and I had to put language around them. And so the more I was willing to put language around what had come through, the more information became available. And so like language served as sort of a carrier wave for unpacking the fields themselves. And so while I didn't create them, they did move through me as a wholly integrated holonomic system that then has encoded within them my personal references and distinctions made really throughout the course of my life. And why that's important is not because it's anything to do with me. It's important in that it makes the fields relatable. It makes the fields human, right? I mean, I'm pretty open about, I haven't had a perfect life, and certainly had no idea that there was so much more going on than what meets the eye, and that no matter what's happened to us, we're always whole and complete and beings of love. I had no idea. That just sounded like a bunch of esoteric baloney to me. So what's woven through in the fields is like, all right, we're these awesome limitless beings, and we're having experiences that don't feel that way. We're having experiences that feel like limitation, and this is the way that it can show up in everybody's life. And so there's a lot of access points in the field that let anyone, no matter where you are in your experience, no matter how little or much scientific knowledge you have, you can access. There's something very relatable about the field.
Beautiful. Thank you for this. This is such powerful information, and I know that people that are watching and listening I think that they're having like these ahas, these little bursts of inspiration and new awareness. So thank you for that.
I'm so delighted, and thank you for having me back. And it's a joy to share with your community and to share with you and support you and your awesome momentum. I'm cheering you on, and
thank
see
you
around the world.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Awakened Goddess Show. I hope you enjoyed today's guest and got something you can start using in your life right away. For more spiritual insights and to listen to more episodes, subscribe to The Awakened Goddess Show at theawakenedgoddess.com and discover wisdom that'll change your life.